I am Aaron Kavanaugh. I am part of the Kaza group and starred, I guess the head of Stream, which is short-term rental education acquisition and management team. I've got my friend and partner Corey DiAugustino, who owns his own, short-term rental business. So Corey, why don't you give us a little heads up as to who you are, what you do, and why you're here?
Sure. So I have been in the real estate game for a while, almost 20 years. Started out buying long-term rentals, then moved into small apartment buildings, uh 4 years ago, right? I keep saying
Yeah,
three, but I think I
something
need
like
to move
that.
it up to four. Uh uh Converted one of my long terms into a short term. Saw the money it was making, started buying a few more short terms, then started managing short terms. So I now have a management company, KBR co-hosting. And then we are now doing consulting and coaching for either people that are looking to get started in short-term rentals, or if you have an existing short-term rental and you don't want a management company, but you're struggling, we can coach you on how to make more money.
Revenue management's a big topic, no question
Not
about it. I
just
think,
revenue management, but also like I don't want to take over anything on anybody who wants to run it themselves.
sure.
So it's showing you what to do and the settings to pop on and how to get the listing optimized so that you can make the money yourself.
Cool. Next in line, we've got my partner in crime, Vernon Corum, who is a master at this game as well. He's down in the Smokies. Vernon, give us a little 2 cents about yourself.
Yeah, I'm a Vernon Corum. I'm a real estate agent with Kaza Group as well. I also own my own property management company here in the Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee. We have about 19,000 short-term rentals here. I personally manage and oversee about 40 of those. And we really have a really good system. We've built a hospitality ecosystem where we have three different levels of management. We do the DIY where we help folks like Corey does and you guys do, help them with their setup, everything, with their coaching and consulting to get everything going in the right direction, help them buy, sell a list, of course. And then we also, we have a done with you partnership where we do co-hosting. And then we have the full end-to-end service management. I was on the phone this morning with an investor from California. She loved the fact that we had an a la carte approach. So we kind of find that that kind of meets all of our investors' needs. So we really have tried to really go in that direction where we can do all three things as well as the real estate. So that's kind of my background.
Sweet. And then my friend Isabel, tell us all about you.
Hi, well, I'm a real estate investor. I started as a real estate agent as well. I and I and I'm a tax strategist after that because what happened is that I learned that real estate gives you a lot of opportunities with the tax code, and I started learning, and then I founded this company that is called Keep It All, and it's about how to make you more money with the tax code and how to utilize the tax code and the law in order to make more money. So
Sweet.
basically, real estate is a great tool, one of the most amazing tools that has been building fortunes forever. And I teach how to do that, how to use the tax code and the law in order to make you wealthier.
Cool, cool. Well, we have a few slides here today that we're just going to kind of roll through. If you've got questions, just kind of raise your hand or put it out in the chat, and we'll keep our eyes and ears open for what's going on. Um, but just wanted to, make sure that everybody knew what we were all about. So, um, anyway, um, here we go. So, as far as the next slide, let me see if I can do this. Here we go. That's just me. There's a picture of a house. Love that. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about all kinds of things. So Corey, why don't you give us a little insight as to what you do when you're first looking at a real estate investment like a short-term rental? What are the first things that you look for?
Um, I mean, the first thing I do is make sure it's in an area where I can actually do a short-term rental.
That's important.
Uh, yeah. You've got different levels that you need to get through. The first one is the county, and then the city, and city/town, and then down to the HOA if there is one. So those are the three areas that I look at first. Once it's a viable short-term rental or short-term area that I can look in, I will then look for a specific type of property. Depending on the market that you're in, that I'm in, I look for different things. There's a difference, even from, I don't know, a half hour, 45-minute drive, right? The type of profile that I look for would change depending on where the market lands.
Sure,
And
sure.
then we go on, we analyze the property, using stuff like Mashvisor, Rabu, Air DNA is the big one, making
Mhm.
sure that the property is there. Some people I find look at the financials of the existing property, and I think that that's great to look at them from a negotiation standpoint if the financials are not very strong on a particular property, but I wouldn't use it as a barometer for whether or not the property is a good investment. As
Right.
far as I'm concerned, if somebody else is running the property and the numbers aren't strong, uh, that person simply doesn't know what they're doing most of the time. So if I can negotiate a good deal on that property based upon poor financials, good for me. And then when I can get in there, I can make that thing perform the way that I know it can. But seeing poor financials on a property isn't going to necessarily scare me away from a property.
Yeah, for sure. So, one of the first things that I ask, new investors or investors that just get introduced to me is, what is their strategy, right? So we've got a couple of people that come in to the business looking into the short-term rental game, looking for just a place to go and park their hat for a couple weeks out of the year and then rent it the rest of the time. So there's that layer of investment. Then there is the person that, like you and I, we buy an investment that is purely an investment. We want it to rent as much as possible. Clearly, we may stay there here and there, but purely an investment, certainly to drive revenue. And then the third is that person that's looking for a tax benefit. So, with the current administration, the big beautiful bill, they had bonus depreciation on their mind. They had cost segregation. So I'm seeing a lot of clients come in today, right now, hoping to get into that property as soon as possible. So when I start sending them things, it has to really fit one of those three molds, right? So we've got different loan types, we've got different property types, we've got different rules and regs in each county, city, and HOA, depending, right? So you really want to know your tune. So if you're working with an agent that doesn't know the rules and regs like we do, you're going to have a problem starting from the very jump. So, Vernon, real quick, in your area, obviously there's 3 or 4 main cities. What are the rules and regs that you kind of watch out for?
Right. Well, it can be different depending on the city, even though they're all a part of the same county. They're different
Sure.
for each city. They all have different taxes. They all have different structures. And we also have another level that we have to go to outside the HOA and all of the things that we've discussed. We have to actually go get a short-term rental permit done by the fire department. So there are certain
Mm,
criteria there. So we actually, that's one more law that they put in place like last year, 2 years ago. And so we've actually got to go a little deeper. We didn't have to go look at, egress and the fire codes and letters and things. And so it's really another level of just knowing your market and knowing where you're working at and knowing their rules and regulations. So we are all, on the same page. When I got an investor coming in, they want to buy a property that's never been on a short-term rental, we have to make sure that it applies for the short-term rental permit, make sure it passes fire code. And then onto that, we got to make sure that we've done everything that they ask us to do, because we had the fires there back in like 2016 or so, and it was a bad experience. So they've really amped it down and tightened it down on us here locally for that.
yeah, for sure. So, going back to, I didn't know that you guys had a fire code specific
Mm-hmm.
rules and regs. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
I know in our area, we have a lot of health department, making sure that the beds and baths kind of match up to the septic,
Mm-hmm.
and other systems like that.
Mm-hmm.
I also know that if you're looking to buy land, in our area and put multiple units on a larger piece of property, you have to have, state maintained frontage. So there's a lot of little intricacies like that are out there that really make a difference. Corey, going back to you real quick, you just bought a property from me a couple years ago, and it was a 4 bed right? And then you had to add a window to that to make it legitimately a 4-bed. Is that correct?
Correct.
The Bryce property.
Yep. So it was actually 3 bedrooms. We walled off one of the areas in there to make it a 4th bedroom. So that was kind of cool to do that. It's a very large, was an office, now it is a double bunk bedroom. But that area wasn't the problem. There was a basement bedroom in the house, which the listing agent considered a bedroom.
Yep.
I guess it is considered a bedroom because it had a window in there. But when you go to get the permitting done by the health department, they look for the egress, and it has a window in there, and that was fine. The trick on the window was, even though it was big enough, the bottom sill of the window was 40. I'm sorry, it was 48 inches off of the ground. So from the
Right.
floor to the bottom sill was 48 inches. And in order for them to pass it and be considered a bedroom and give you the okay, it had to be 44 inches off of the ground. So I was 4 inches short of having
Oh
that
boy.
considered a bedroom. So called the contractor up. They took a look at it, ripped out the current window, made a bigger hole, bought a bigger window, put it in, had them come out, everything passed.
Cool. Cool. Very good. All right. So, so there obviously we're dealing with a lot of different things. So getting the permit is actually one of the most important things that you can do, because if you get caught, you could be A, taken off of the platforms, B, shut down by the county, and C, now your business is kind of offline and not really moving in the right direction. So, following the rules is really, really important. Anything else that we can talk about, property specific, county specific, that you might, throw out there that you've encountered in either of your area, Corey or Vernon? I mean, Corey, I know you're all over the place. You're in um, West Virginia, you're in Georgia, you're in Tennessee, you're all over so kind of give us the scoop as to what other kind of rules and regs that you're looking at that can determine a good STR or not.
Yeah, I mean, as far as a good STR goes, I'm not too concerned about that part of it, but it is the regulations, right? So,
Yeah.
we were doing another property out in West Virginia. Again, dealing with the same situation where it's got a finished basement. It has a window down there. The owners want to make it a bedroom down there, and the area that they want the bedroom is not against the wall where the egress is. They want to put it on the opposite side, which is underground. However, there is a walkout to an escape route, which is interesting. So we were like, okay, when you go to the side of the house, you can lift up those panels and then walk down the stairs. So
Yeah.
I don't know what you call those, but I'll call it an escape route. What is it called?
Yeah.
Basement access?
It's a
Whatever.
walk up.
A
Yeah. But
walk
yeah.
up, walk out. So they have that. So we were like, okay, cool. Maybe this will suffice, right? So if we put the bedroom up against this wall and that door goes into that area where you can then go to the walkout, that should suffice as egress. Super important before you do the construction, find out what the regulation is, because you don't want to be
Sure.
spending time and money doing the construction and then finding out that you're still not in compliance. So we had the inspector come out there, and to every lay person, it's very logical to say, okay, well, this now butts up against a door that goes into this room and you can get right out. That's egress. Because that space in that area is an unfinished space, they don't consider it egress. That's where the laundry room is. So it's an unfinished space, right? There's no walls. The walls are
Right.
just studs, right? It's where the washer and dryer are. It's where the utility room is. So it's not finished. So they do not consider that an accessible area for egress because it's not finished. So, and
Interesting.
even if we were to finish it, they said that the opening to the door, the hallway area, was not wide enough for it to be considered egress anyway. So they're making us dig down, put a window in, giant window with a ladder, because they are 6 feet underground at that point. So you have to dig
Wow.
out. It's an $8,000 job, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
But you have to dig down. You have to make the well large enough so that a body, like a 6'3" guy, right, can fit in there.
Yeah.
And then there has to be a ladder that comes down into that well so you can climb out. I mean, it's an $8,000 project.
Sure,
So
sure.
you just want to be aware of what the regulations are before you spend the money to build the whole thing and then have them come out and say, oh, well, this doesn't work because you don't
Oh,
have this
by the way,
window.
yeah, you
Yeah.
got to do something else. Vernon, what are you seeing in the Smokies? What are the most
Uh,
gotchas, that
we
you're
got a
seeing down there?
Yeah, we have a rule about septic tanks where you see what the house has to be perked for a certain amount of bedrooms. I have a 5 bedroom on paper that is actually a 4 bedroom. The owner I've got it listed now, and when we first listed it, she was like, "This is a 5 bedroom." I'm like, "The county says it's a 4, so I have to list it as such on the MLS." Now, when we show it, it's on Airbnb as such. Everyone is like, well, it's technically a 5 bedroom, but on paper, I can't advertise it for more. So a lot of times, if you're looking on the MLS or you're looking at properties, I'd be curious to see a lot of times, because sometimes it'll say there's a lot more beds or it sleeps a lot more people, but it may just be because the county says or the city says you can't put it on there on the MLS because it's specifically, perked for that size. The septic will only handle that much, but those are some little tricky things in my area. Inside of Knoxville, we have a short-term rental permitting process where you have to be a resident. There was a question on there I saw about the ADUs. ADUs are really relaxed, really good in our area. And so in Knoxville, where I actually live, inside the city, you either have to be a resident or a primary owner. It has to be zoned commercial or zoned previously, grandfathered in as an STR. In the county, it's kind of like the Wild Wild West. But,
Hmm.
a lot of people buy properties in Knoxville and don't ever see them. They'll have a real estate agent that doesn't know what they're doing. They'll call me and say, "Hey, I want to put this on management for short-term rental." And I'm like, "Sorry, we're going to have to go midterm or long term." And, it just blows them out of the water because they didn't know this. But it's just because people don't spend enough time thinking about things and doing their due diligence.
Hey, Vernon, going
Sure.
back to the perk tests, right? With the
Mm-hmm.
bedroom count. I
Mm-hmm.
have noticed that because I've looked at a number of properties out that way. And I
Mm-hmm.
noticed that all the ones on the MLS, they say 2 bedrooms, and I get why. Like, I completely
Mm-hmm.
understand that. From a short-term rental regulation perspective, with these counties or cities or however it goes out there, are they looking at that when they are giving you an occupancy count or a bedroom count?
Mm-hmm.
Because I know in, like, in Shenandoah, if you have a property that's perked for a 2 bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
they will give you an occupancy for 4 people. It's 2 people per bedroom. But I
Mm-hmm.
know that these properties out in the Smokies that are big, that are being listed for 700,000 as a 2 bedroom, there's no way that they're only operating with a 4 person occupancy.
Yeah, as
So
long as
what's
you're
the deal with the regulation for the short-term rental permit and what they're looking at when they're looking at occupancy? Because that has always kind of made me pull back from wanting to purchase something out there, because I see what it's listed as and I know why they're doing that because of the perk, but I don't know what
Mhm.
the regulations are from a short-term rental licensing perspective for occupancy is.
So when you're doing occupancy, a lot of times it really depends upon what you're saying a while ago. Do you have an exit? Do you have an out place? It's when they come in to do the short-term rental inspection for the fire, they're mainly looking for, is the bottom floor, is there a way for people to get out of it? Is there clearly marked signs for places for them to do it? So when it comes to the listing of the property, it's one thing, but you'll see a lot of properties that are listed that are 2 bedroom, but they sleep 12 people because they've got bunk beds or whatever. They've got different areas. So that doesn't come into play unless it's a problem where there's blockages or where the people can't get in or out or whatever. So on paper, it has to be listed though as like a regular, a 2 bedroom, and it might sleep up to 12. Now we have a rule here that if you go beyond 12, then you have to have a fire system in place where you have sprinklers and you have a way
Right.
to create, or it has to be grandfathered in. Anything previous to that was already grandfathered in is okay, but people that are building new properties or buying properties that sleep more than 12 or 14 people are now having to figure out, okay, do I want to put this $60,000 sprinkler system in here to make this thing sleep that many, or should I just sleep 12 and just be done with it? So what normally happens is when they come out, as long as there's plenty of access and it's not like in a corner somewhere, behind something blocking the way or whatever, they're pretty okay with it. But it just depends. Each inspector is a little different. The rule
Right.
is the occupancy should be what the occupancy says on the permit, on the
On the
actual.
permit.
Yeah.
Yes. So I got that, but that's interesting. So you have a
Right.
fire inspector, which I get for the egress
Mm-hmm.
and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Right.
You don't have a health inspection.
Mm-mm. No,
Okay,
that's
so
done
that's
through the
what
health
we have
department.
here. That's what we
Mm-hmm.
have here. It's a health and safety
Right.
inspection. And so they put the safety part in because that kind of constitutes the fire part of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where they
Right.
check for the egress, they check for the smoke detectors, they check for the fire
Mm-hmm.
extinguishers. And
Mm-hmm.
then the health part of it is, okay, we looked up the county records. this property has a, whatever it is, 3-bedroom perk with a 3-bedroom septic. So we're going to write you an occupancy for 6 people here.
Right.
And that's it. You can't go above that. So I
Mhm.
wasn't
Yeah,
sure
we're
if
not
that
to
was the
that
case
level.
and everybody was
Yeah,
just
we're not to
breaking
that
the,
level yet.
breaking
Yeah, we're
the,
not to that level yet, but I see it coming because
Oh,
you got a
do
lot
ya?
of people. You got to see a lot of people trying to sleep, 14 people in a property that really should only sleep 6, or so.
Sure.
And so and people think more heads and beds. I'm of the opinion that more heads and beds is not always the best thing anyway. But
I agree with you on
I
that.
can understand if you're bringing a small family, multi-generational family situation where you've got a 2-bedroom and you want to sleep 6 or 8 people. The bathrooms can handle it, the septic can handle it. But again, the safety part of it is when we do a listing on the MLS, I always tell my folks to make sure we get a septic permit, we figure out what it's perked for. And on top of that, a lot of times some of our properties in the Smokies, either fires or damages or things that are previous to electronic records, they don't even have information for that. So we're having to call a septic company to come out and figure it out or whatever.
Brand
So
new, yeah.
yeah.
So
So
is that
it's-
enforced out there?
Yep.
So from a listing perspective, right, Aaron, you can probably help answer this
Sure.
because I know that there are properties that are listed in Page and Shenandoah County and probably Warren County as well that are only perked and only have the with the health and safety, right? Like they only have
Correct.
a certain number of bedrooms that their septic system is rated for. However, I know for a fact that these things are being listed and it doesn't line up to the septic system perk. It doesn't sound like it's regulated here like it is in the Smokies. That part of
Yeah,
it.
so
Right.
you're right. There are a lot of properties. So I own one, right? So I own a 2-bed, 1-bath A-frame. It has a 2-bedroom perk that's set up for 4 people, and we sleep 6, right? And so that's just the way that we operate that one. Now, according to the county, we are within compliance because we're not above 8 people or whatever. The same thing applies. We're not fully occupied 100% of the time running the dishwasher, running the thing, and overloading the systems. The real answer to this question is, does it come down to, or does the county actually have the bandwidth to investigate what's going on with each and every STR within the county to make sure that they're following the exact rules? There are very clear parameters. There are very clear very beginning operation stuff, but then after that, I don't think they're really
Well, that part I
watching.
get. That part I get. I was talking more from a listing perspective, right? Like all the
Yeah,
properties
so
that I see listed in the Smokies, they all say they're 2-bedroom. Even though I
Mhm.
can tell that these things, there's no way all those properties in the Smokies are operating as 2-bedroom properties because nobody
No,
would be
they're
making
not.
any money. But
Right.
when they're listed, it seems to be very strict out there
It
that
is.
if it's rated as a 2-bedroom perk, it's listed as a 2-bedroom property. Where
Yes.
here in Shenandoah and Page County, it could be a 2-bedroom perk with 2-bedroom, or it could be a 2-bedroom
Yeah.
perk. But if somebody did an addition without getting the septic upgraded, they're
Right.
going to list it as a 4-bedroom, even though it's only perked for 2. So that's something else that I do look for in Shenandoah and Page County is, hey,
Right.
this says 4 bedrooms. Well, before I buy that property, I go to the county, I pull the health records, I see what the septic system is rated for, because if it's only rated for a 2-bedroom septic, the county is only going to give me an occupancy for 4 people. So my question is there a difference in the real estate board, real estate commission, MLS system, where the Smokies need to be strict on that and they don't really care in Shenandoah?
Yeah, great question. So in Virginia, they just launched, and it just happened not too long, a couple months ago, where any listing, doesn't matter if it's an STR or not, if it has a septic, they have to provide the buyer a copy of the historical records for that particular septic system. Whether it's been updated or not, it needs to, so they have a record of exactly what that system shows, right?
Which again,
And
I'm asking about the way it's listed, right? Like the way it's
yeah,
listed.
totally get it. But that's what I'm saying is at that point, if you see I've got a 4-bedroom house and it's only got a 2-bed perk, there's an issue potentially brewing in that particular property, especially if you're trying to get a STR permit,
But
right?
there's no barrier or regulation on a, again, like it looks like there is in the Smokies. Any real estate agent can take a 2-bedroom perk property and list it as a 5-bedroom if they wanted to, and nobody's
Sure.
going to say anything about it. It's
Unless
buyer
the county,
beware. It's
yeah,
buyer beware, right? You better do your own due diligence in Page and Shenandoah County.
for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
and so Tim, great question.
What do you think,
Yes,
Snapper?
there is a quick checklist that I can send out to everybody in reference to rules and regs. So each county has their own. It's most of the time it's just to set up a, quick permit for tax purposes, so they can see that you've registered as a business, so they can collect occupancy taxes and stuff from you. But the behind the scenes stuff, well, septic, health department, those are the big ones that we are all dealing with. All right. So Snapper, you had a question?
No,
No,
no
you're
question.
I just wanted to get the attorney's opinion on properties being listed with the wrong bedrooms and the wrong perks, but maybe
Snapper,
you
go
know that,
for it,
maybe you
buddy.
don't.
That strikes
for it.
me. That strikes me as problematic. Is my initial reaction
Sure.
to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, as the attorney, I tend to be more risk averse, and so I would never be advising my own clients to be listing anything that is in any way inconsistent from how the property is certified or legally set up or anything like that. You might
Okay.
say we have, 7 beds in 3 bedrooms, but to say that you have a certain number of bedrooms, think bedrooms have a legal significance in that context, and to say that you have more than that, I think, is misleading, and I would certainly not encourage doing that.
All right. So now for the
Yeah.
$1 million question, really putting you on the spot. If a buyer were to purchase a property that was listed as a 4-bedroom, but it only had a 2-bedroom perk, and they bought that property, and then they went to the county to go get their STR permit, and the county said, well, it's only perked for 2 bedrooms, so your occupancy is 4. Is there any recourse for that buyer?
I think it depends on where you are. I think generally speaking, so here in Virginia, we're a caveat emptor state. The buyer has they've got to exercise their due diligence, and so all of those records are available to them. There's nothing that prevents them from going and doing that research on their own. So I don't, and I can't speak to other states, but I don't know
Sure.
that there would be.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, the problem really is knowing what you're looking for to begin with, right? It's the most important thing is, what are the things? So yeah, here's a funny one. So the property we bought, I just got so excited. I loved it. It was the first year I was in the business of doing the short-term rental thing. And I said, oh, this is going to be a great one. It's got beautiful windows. It's a perfect setup. Little did I know that the property needed to be 100 feet away from the next door neighbor. We're 48 feet. I got extremely lucky because the house, two owners prior to us had the short-term rental permit, and the permit conveys with the property regardless whether the owner used it or not. And so we went through the same process to get the permit. At the same time, they were like, this doesn't match the criteria. So what we did was we went to all the neighbors and some of the work that we needed done was done by the next door neighbor who was a contractor. So we paid him. So we kind of went the sideways route into that thing. But at the end of the day, we've got the permit and now we're following the rules like we should. We're paying our taxes. Everything is good. In Warren County, where Front Royal, each area in the Shenandoah that we talk about, I'll direct people into, hey, I need to buy something, get it online before the end of the year as a short-term rental. Well, you're not going to look in Warren County anymore because you won't be able to add it to Airbnb and successfully be a short-term rental until you get that permit, right? So it's just knowing what you know about the rules and regs in each location. And if you don't know, pick up the phone and call the zoning department. They'll tell you directly what the rules are and how to do it. And they'll tell you better than what ChatGPT or any other, web address can find, although ChatGPT is pretty good. All right. So I'm going to take a little different turn. This is probably part of the conversation that most people want to talk about. And I'm going to talk to Isabel mostly. Taxes. How to save money on your taxes and the rules behind what does it mean to do a cost segregation? How do you determine what your value is and things like that? So kind of walk us generally through it. I know
So
each
yeah,
area is different.
let me go back a little bit because the conversation you just had, it's very important for the taxes perspective as well, because
Okay.
in order to to do all these things, all these strategies, you have to be compliant to whatever the county says, and otherwise the IRS will not look at it as a business if you're not in compliance. So it is very important to follow like all the regulations and all that. Now, the good part is that, you know, that the law doesn't only tell us what we cannot do. The law also provides us with the things that we can do. You know, we can take advantage of the law, and everything that is written in the tax record I mean, in the tax code is what is going to help us build our business. So definitely, I mean, we as investors, we need to take advantage of the tax code. Otherwise, we'll be missing out on huge opportunities that the government gives us. So yeah, that's and specifically with short-term rentals, the IRS looks at short-term rentals as well. You have to follow certain rules, but it looks at certain rentals as active income, you know, as an active business. So if you have a salary, or if you have a business, or whatever your income is coming from, the IRS looks at short-term rentals as that you're participating on it, as long as you're materially participating on it and you're spending 100 hours a year. And certain things like your guests should on average stay for less than 7 days, and you know, and basically you should be the person who's actually taking care of most of the work. You need to prove that you are the person who is taking care of pretty much everything. And if that's the case, then you don't have to be a real estate professional in order to take advantage of everything that is written in the tax code. And this year, as many of you know, this year the new fiscal bill passed, and that put bonus depreciation on the 100%. That means that that if I mean, I want to like the previous year and the year before, we were like losing previous bonus depreciation. Last year was 60%, and this year was supposed to be 40, but it went all the way up to 100. And that means that you can prove losses from your short-term rental from day one, as long as as long as you put it to put it to work. You know what? From day one, for the first day you're renting it, right?
Okay. So in that question, so if I'm looking at a property, I have the purchase price, I have the closing costs, I have the setup, furniture, hot tubs, amenities, all of those things. What can be written off, or can all of that be written off in the
So
first year?
there are certain things. All the improvements are write-offs. All the furniture, decoration, everything, all that is deductible. Everything you can write off all that. So that is one part of the equation. The one part of the savings you can do. Bonus
Right.
depreciation is something different. The way it works is you purchase the property, you put it to work, and then a company that does a cost segregation study will come to your property and will tell you what can be depreciated from day one in how much. You know, the flooring can be depreciated or in a different with certain amount, and then maybe the AC could be depreciated in different. So it was going to give you a list of everything that can be depreciated, and at the end it's going to add up to a certain amount that is
Right.
your loss for that year.
Okay. Gotcha. So you haven't made a dime yet. You just launched it, right? You get the CPA, whoever is going to do your cost segregation. They're going to list out everything that's there. So quick question, and this is just something that I learned. So land is looked at differently. So if you have a 20-acre parcel with a $400,000 house, the land is looked at a different layer than the
So
actual residence.
land doesn't depreciate.
Okay.
Land doesn't depreciate. There are other things that you can do with land, but like, you know, like exchanges and things like that. But that land doesn't depreciate. So basically what the cost segregation study company is going to see is going to say, okay, you bought a property for $500,000, and probably in $100,000 of that property is land. Everything else is depreciable, but land is not.
Okay. Interesting.
And so with the cost segregation study, if you buy in let's say you buy now, right? 2025 in October, and it takes you a while to get the property renovated and started up, but you start up January 3rd of 2026. Are you still able to take the full bonus depreciation in 2026 as opposed to 2025, or is there something that comes into play?
You can, it has to be from the day you put it to work. From the day is productive. So yeah.
So if you're not on the
Now,
market
you can
per
do it-
se,
Exactly. But if you put it to work in 2024, you can still do it. Or maybe in 2020 or whatever, you can still do it.
Sure. But you'd still get the full 100% bonus depreciation in 2026 if it took you 4 months to get it going and you started at April 15th of 2026.
If everything, you know, is the way it is this year, yes. We don't know if that's going to change for 2025, 2026. So, but
yeah.
So that's why, like, for every short-term rental owner, or, you know, anybody who wants to buy a property, they should, I mean, please put it to work before December 31st, because it's.
And it could be the first day. You don't have, I heard something it had to be going for like 2 weeks or something like that.
No, it could be the
Nope,
first day.
first day. Okay.
The first
Cool.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of stuff going on there. Vernon, how quickly can you close on a property in Tennessee?
Got two people right now in the same boat that we're talking about, and we
Sure.
got to get it. We're trying to get them done by 30 days. You know, that's about
Okay.
average. Obviously, our goal is to get them into the property so they can, you know, count this year, get everything rolling this year. And you know, one question I have I think she just answered it. What does 2026 look like? I'd like to know that answer. Do we know?
I think, I mean, at least the way it's set up right now in the bill, it's supposed to stay.
Okay.
So
Good.
we don't know if
Yeah.
that's going to change,
Good to
but it's
know.
supposed to stay. That's what is happening.
So
So
I, you know, preface all of this by absolutely,
Of course, yes.
we know what we're doing, but we also want you to go to your professional, go to Snapper, your attorney, go to your CPA, your financial, whoever, and make sure you're following the rules the right way. So, you know, this is absolutely what we want you to do. Just real quick, in Virginia, go ahead.
Sorry. Tim's got a question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Real quick, in Virginia, you can buy a property as quickly as 2 weeks or as long as, you know, 60 days. So, you know, if you're trying to get in before the end of the year, now is the time, and you have to certainly, you know, pigeonhole yourself into something that's more prepared, something that's already got a permit, something that's already an STR. Like, you really got to hustle to get to this thing before the end of the year. Tim, your question. I'm sorry.
Tim, are you in a witness protection program?
No, I'm in a poorly lit basement because I'm changing careers and I don't have lighting that I need. So you're lucky you're lucky I have a camera.
Cool. Right, what's your question, my friend?
So regarding all this bonus depreciation stuff, I mean, I don't want to argue with Isabel, but and I'm not a CPA, though I did pass the test 29 years ago. I'm not a CPA, but I passed it. And I would run this by Snapper, or Snapper probably would agree with me. You definitely need to talk to your CPA. I mean, I've talked to my CPA about all of these issues. After doing my own research, it looks like the bonus depreciation stuff is way more geared towards commercial and industrial properties. You can use them on residential, but you also have to do juice versus a squeeze, right? Because if your roof or your carpet or your whatever is going to be bonus depreciation, it's like, well, what's your carpet worth? $10,000, and you can depreciate it in 10 years instead of 27 and a half years, right? So that's $2,000 of extra depreciation expense, right? So then that just is how much extra real savings in taxes, because the segregation is not a free service, right? You're gonna have to be paying for that. So if you have a substantially expensive property, you're more likely to take advantage of it, but there's probably a certain threshold where it's not going to be useful. At least that would be my opinion. But again, that's just my opinion. Check with a CPA.
Yes,
that's all I got.
Yeah, I also believe that it depends on the price of the property. You know, if you buy a property for like a very cheap property for below $200,000, it may not be the return on investment wouldn't be the right one, definitely. I think it has to be at least above $200,000 in order for your return of investment to actually make sense.
Yeah, I actually have a conversation going with a gentleman in Berkeley Springs. He bought a property. It was a flip. He bought it for I think it was 330. Put 150 grand. He's got it renting right now. It's actually performing pretty dang well for its first year. He's going to breach 100,000. It's a really cool property. He's in audit right now because he's purchased 2 houses 2 years in a row, and the audit is because he claimed too much on his bonus depreciation. So part of that conversation, and now he's like, I got to sell these properties because I need to pay the taxes that I'm that they're claiming that I owe. And so there's something that went wrong. I don't know, but
he didn't pass the audit because usually conservation study the companies, they will provide, kind of like this is kind of like the guarantee of what you can and you cannot deduct. So
of course.
So
again, I don't know what he did, but I'm just saying he's now in the middle of an audit for 2 years straight, and he's uncomfortable because he's feeling like he's going to have to owe like $75,000 to $100,000 in taxes, which is unpleasant to anyone. So regardless of your job and whatever you're doing, but so just if you are into this position of really trying to do the cost segregation, and all of that, really find out. So Snapper, I have a question for you. Very important. So when we buy something, there's multiple loan products that we can use, right? So I get this question all the time. Should I use an LLC for a short-term rental? And how does that affect your cost segregation or your opportunity in that?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the cost segregation to Isabel. She's the tax strategist, and I don't want to step on her toes with that. But as far as a protection mechanism, absolutely you should have it in some sort of a business structure. An LLC makes a lot of sense. They're super easy to set up. They're not expensive to do. You could probably do it yourself. If you had partners, I'd recommend that you work with an attorney or somebody to draft the operating agreement. Just because it's a business and there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong, but it is easy to set up on your own. But if you don't do it in an LLC, then you have it in your personal name, and then all of your personal assets are basically on the table if there's any judgment against you. God forbid anything goes wrong. And so it's not a scenario where insurance is necessarily going to cover you, and hopefully you're never in that position. But the thing is, if you ever are in that position, the amount of money that you've paid thus far in setting up the LLC and renewing it and doing the things and having the separate business accounts will be so well worth it, just at a minimum, for the stress and hassle of having to know that your stuff, your own home, your kids' college, all of the stuff is safe. Definitely worth it to have it in an LLC. To me, that would be an absolute non-negotiable, not just for short-term rentals, honestly, but for any rental property that you have, long-term, short-term, whatever it is, I would put it in an LLC.
Secondary question. So if I use a 10% second home loan, can I use it in or drop it into an LLC?
I actually don't know. I haven't dealt with that one.
Yeah. So I've heard, and I don't know the right answer, and I will need to research this. Maybe Ryan, who's a Google master, can figure it out. Can I put my 10% second home loan down payment property or mortgage in an LLC to get it started?
So
what's that timeline?
But what I will think is that the mortgage cannot be under the LLC, but the deed can be in the LLC. That's what I will think.
So Upen, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, can I chime in? Yeah, so no, so you can never ever do title or mortgage in an LLC, not on a primary or a second home. Right, it's gotta be an investment transaction, and that too, it has to be a non-agency investment transaction, right? Fannie, Freddie, or any of the standard mortgage programs will not allow LLC title.
Okay.
Oh,
Now, having said that, right, you can buy with a 10% down, hold it for 6 months, and then do a quit claim deed. But then you have the scenario of, like, the veil's pierced, right? So like, how much of a true protection do you really have, right?
Right.
Right. So yes, like, what I kind of do is, like, I mean, again, right, I know we are talking, and I gotta bug you because I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, sure.
What I do when I'm kind of talking with my clients, because I do this a lot, is, and maybe Snapper can kind of chime in here, have a huge ass umbrella policy. So yes, I do not want to be caught with my pants down. Just have a huge as umbrella policy. And the way, what I'm gonna tell my clients is, like, look, if you're such a bad person and you're gonna be sued for like 15 million, 20 million, guess what? You deserve it. Otherwise, the umbrella is gonna protect you.
Sure.
So I just want to go back to what Snapper said about put it in absolutely put it in an LLC. But on top of that, only not only for your asset protection, but if it is a business. So if there's so much deductions that you can claim because it is a business, every time you visit the property, every time, everything you can, and you can only do that if it's on the LLC. Then you can put your family on the board, and then you can take trips and deduct those trips as well. So there are many strategies that can only be in place if you treat your short-term rental as a business, because otherwise you cannot claim all that.
Right.
If
Yeah.
it's
So if
under
it's
your
a second home, right? Second home is not a true, you're still going to use it more frequently. So for example, if I had a beach condo in South Carolina at Myrtle Beach or something like that, and I go there twice a year, yeah, that's great. And it's rented the rest of the time. South Carolina also has different rules on their taxes, right? So if you're an out-of-state owner, you have a different tax bracket that you're paying into versus a South Carolina resident. So interesting rules and stuff like that. So the whole point of this conversation is just to get your mind open to, obviously this is a great investment opportunity. Obviously people are making a lot of money in a lot of different ways, coaching, running property, tax strategies, mortgages, to all the things that come with short-term rentals or any investment, right? It's just making sure that you're very well knowledgeable on all of the things going down the line. So, I know that we've got other ways to buy properties and self-directed IRAs, as Ryan mentioned. I don't know much about that. So, borrowing from your 401k and things like that, you can do stuff like that, but you also need to replenish those funds at some point. So, can I use a term life policy to buy a property because I can have cash value to it? So there are things that are aside of all of what we're talking about that can be done along the way. Corey, got anything to add to this? Any words of wisdom for somebody thinking about buying a short-term rental as far as rules and regs?
It's always changing. I mean, not always changing. It depends on where you are. I mean, you just got to be aware of what you're getting into. Make sure you do your homework. Make sure you know what's going on. The one tricky thing that I think a lot of us hold our breath on is, I'm buying this today in this
Yeah.
scenario, but what happens when I go to sell in 4 years? What does the landscape look like? Right? Like, that's the
Sure.
big one everybody's always asking about, especially, when you're buying these short-term rentals. Sometimes you are getting aggressive on what you're willing to pay for it. And if there were no short-term rentals allowed, would that price point still fit the bill for the next person coming in to buy?
Understood.
But it's
Yeah.
just something to be aware of. It's not, I don't think it's the end of the world, just something to think about.
Yeah. Isa, any words of wisdom? Final thoughts. We only got about 9 minutes left.
No, but I do have a document of 5 advantages of tax advantages that you can use before the end of the year, and I wanted to share it here. So I
Sure.
just
Go
put it in
ahead.
the chat, and but then yes, if you have any questions about taxes, please reach out to me. I'm gonna leave my information is already in the chat, and I would love to help you. If you do want to put a strategy in place, just book a call with me. That is also something that is available. I'm gonna leave the link here to book a call, and I'm very happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hey, Vernon, what you got? Anything good words of wisdom? You've been in this game a long time.
Yeah, stay in my lane, number one. Number two, if you have a question, ask. That's the
Right.
best way for all of us to learn. Because I don't ever want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I love being around folks like you guys that know a lot about this stuff and really are part of that building. All I can say is I've seen so many times where people have not done their due diligence. And by the time they get to me, I mean, whether it's they didn't, plan for staging or decor. I have a 7M strategy, as I always talk to people. Every property needs some kind of makeover. They need to factor in the maintenance, deferred maintenance, ongoing, monetization models. And with all of that, I think the hardest part of it is understanding the legal side of it. So I always recommend, again, as we say today, we're not legal professionals. Please check with the folks that know. And I'm always the first guy to say, if you don't know, I don't know. I'm going to ask somebody who does. So that's kind of that's how I do business.
That's right. And for me, being most of the words of wisdom that I provide is I'm going to direct you away from pitfalls as much as I possibly can, because I already have investigated a lot of the rules. Do I know any of the changes? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Rockingham County, for example, is now changing their rules. That meeting, I believe, is today, Corey, just so you know, where they were by right able to do whatever you want with a property, without the exception of certain cities. But in Rockingham County, you were allowed to do whatever you want by right. Now they're actually asking for a application process that would take 30 days to kind of review and things like that. So just try to keep up with the rules and regs. Try to work with an agent that knows, enough to get in trouble. How about that? But at least avoid a lot of the pitfalls. Like, I know a lot of people want to buy properties that are in Front Royal because it's the closest to Washington, D.C. And the number of buyers and sellers that actually, or buyers or visitors that come to, Front Royal because of the Skyline Drive and the Shenandoah River and all of the things that are there, they don't necessarily know that they can't get in and start operating right away. So, that's something very important. What HOAs do not allow for short-term rentals, right? You may see one that's in a neighborhood that's not necessarily illegal, right? So, there are lots of things that you can go to and really understand how to get in trouble with. And so working with a top producing professional in the short-term rental business area is absolutely important. Corey, you just unmuted, so you got something to
No,
say.
I was just going to tag on to the HOA thing.
Yeah.
Also monitor the size of the HOA, right?
Sure.
The smaller the HOA, the easier it is for them to change the covenants and bylaws, right? The larger ones, you typically,
yeah.
right? What is it? Snapper, you could probably talk to this. The
70%.
Virginia state law is like 2/3 of the homeowners
Yeah.
need to be present for the vote, and then it needs to pass. Well, if you only have 8 people, getting 2/3 is easier than if you have 400 people. Getting 2/3 is a lot harder.
Yeah, for sure.
And I'll tell you too, HOAs vary significantly. The people in leadership roles vary significantly. Some of them are checked out and like, oh, this is a hassle. I don't want to deal with this at all. And some of them, like, they've retired or left their job and this has become their job and they're super intense and super about it. And so it is really a mixed bag. My wife's also an attorney, actually, and her firm specializes in representing HOAs. So I hear about them all the time now and who she deals with. So yeah, but to your point, HOAs can change things whenever they want to. That doesn't mean that it's easy to, and there's a process they have to follow, but they can just change it just like that. And so regardless of what the HOA's bylaws are today, I would be very concerned, just generally speaking, about HOAs and dealing with HOAs, just given the amount of power that they have over your business and over your
Generally
investment.
speaking, what is the Virginia state guidance for an HOA changing a covenant? Is it 2/3 or is it different in different areas?
I'd have to look it up. I think it's 2/3.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm pretty sure
I'd
that's
have
what it
to look
was.
it up for sure.
Yeah. So I got one, Corey. Here's a good one. So I had a property under contract in Newmarket. It wasn't an HOA. The HOA documents were silent. They didn't say anything about, they were built in the 70s. The HOA docs were built at that moment in time, and it had everything to do with like, can't put cars on box. You can't have, temporary structures. You can only have certain number of sheds and things like that, but nothing about short-term rentals. Well, part of the rule was, when we got into this, was that the buyer had to reach out to the HOA president to make sure that they had the contact information to pay the HOA dues. And during that conversation, the owner or the HOA president mentioned, by the way, we had a short-term rental in the neighborhood and we ran him out of here. We didn't want him here.
Yeah, I mean, well, I
And-
ran into one in Fort Valley like that.
Yeah.
We were going through the process, couldn't get a clear answer. There was
Yep.
nothing in the HOA rules or bylaws, but we called somebody on the board and they were like, well, it's not zoned for this. And we were like, well, it is because the county said it was. He's like, well, we don't want them.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so I mean, if there's people that adamant against them and like
Right.
that's somebody on the board, I just think you're opening yourself up to like problems down the road.
Yeah. And so
Even if
there's
they're
no-
allowed there.
That 100%. And that's another, thing. So I was driving a property, or up to a property, and it was in the woods on a dirt road. I'm like, oh God, I don't even want to be here myself. And there were wooden signs, and it said in bright red paint, no BNB. And it had arrows pointing to this guy's house. And I'm like, well, if I'm buying now, they're operating as an Airbnb right now. And so the listing agent said to me, well, it's operating and it's doing okay. It's made $45,000. It's only a $200,000 house. I'm like, okay, that's good numbers. But if any moment that guy gets weird and wants to knock on the door while your guest is there, you're having a trouble. And that then they could leads to bad reviews and things. So it's well beyond just rules and regulations. It's also being neighborly, right? Being friendly with the people around you that will allow you to continue to operate your business. Obviously, one last thing, the rules are changing on Airbnb itself. They're raising their fees, right? So something else, just it's not a rule or not a something legal, but at the end of the day, it's going to affect a lot of people's bottom lines. And so, Corey, as a professional manager, how are you handling that little blip in their?
It should not have. It should have zero impact on your revenue. If you're doing
Okay.
it, if you know what you're doing and you're doing it the right way, it should have zero impact on your revenue.
So you just going up 15% on your rates and sucking it in? Is that how it goes? What are you doing?
Well, you're not really going. Yes, you are essentially going up 15% of your rate, but the guest is no longer paying their 15%, so it's a wash.
Got
The rate that they saw prior to this and the rate they're seeing now, it's the same exact thing. There's a lot of chatter about this.
Yeah,
for absolutely positively no reason.
for sure. So point is, as always, talk to your high-level professionals in this game. We have 3 or 4 today. Snapper, thank you for your time. Upen, thank you for your message. Mr. Foss, thank you for everything that you guys provided today. I appreciate it. If you have this is recorded, we'll send it out here shortly. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to Corey. We'll certainly, or Isa, Vernon, whatever, we'll be able to answer those questions for you right away. If you find value in this webinar, we have them once a month. I am now got some email addresses, and we're going to send out some information about the next one and stuff like that. So we will definitely send what we have recorded as well as anything that's new coming up. So thank you for attending. Feel free to reach out if you have questions beyond, and have a great afternoon, everybody.